Well, I think there were, some fantastic initiatives as part of the National Water Initiative. There's been significant change since. We've seen, water utilities embracing regulation. We're starting to see changes in how that regulation happens. I think Victoria is a great example of the regulator taking a much more customer-focused approach, driving water utilities to be engaging more with their customers, to establish citizen juries to understand what customers really want, and giving the freedom then for water utilities to put business cases forward to actually provide the solutions that their customers do want. I think one of the big gaps that exists at the moment is the difference between regulation around water and what we've done in the water space versus what we've done in the stormwater space. And stormwater is largely unregulated, uncoordinated. We don't necessarily need to see a change in the ownership of stormwater, but as Adam said, we need a better approach for stewardship of an overall integrated water solution. And in that space, what could we do as governments to ensure that we get a diversity of ideas and innovations that can play? There's always a challenge if you've got a single monopoly player providing a vertically integrated solution to drive them to provide the innovative outcomes. So do you drive them, or do you set up a framework where the private sector can also play, or where you have a degree of contestability? Well, look, I think you've got some really disruptive changes that are going to be occurring over the next 10 years, but really as short as 2 to 5 years. Those are water utilities changing to put customer at the heart, to be focusing on what their customers want, as opposed to being focused on the assets and how to maintain them and simply provide the services. That's already happening. But as customers discover that water utilities are doing that, they'll want more and more, and they'll want the right engagement with them, and you'll need people in water utilities that know how to engage with customers, that understand and learn those softer skills and are able to think through those. You'll need more analytics to understand what your customers want and how best to deliver that. You're also going to see major disruption in terms of AI and automation. As I mentioned this morning, there are already some pilots putting in some bots to look at sewage leak detection, for example, or cleaning, that have shown the potential to drastically reduce the number of people that you need in a workforce. So, unless water utilities move ahead of the curve, you're going to have a major disruption to that industry. To move ahead of the curve, you have to think up front about how can we quickly multi-skill our workers? How do we prepare for the new skills that we might need and prepare people with those skills? It's really interesting. We worked recently with one of the big utilities on how they could achieve some significant cost savings in their treatment business, and also how they could be more customer focused in their approach. And what they discovered at the end of that, it wasn't about trying to seek redundancies or trying to seek a reduction in how much they paid people. It was all about trying to seek greater multi-skilling, more flexibility for people to be working from different locations on different activities, basically using their workforce in a much smarter manner, a much more agile manner. I think a real quandary for city planners at the moment is that during the drought, we had a very strong message on water efficiency to households. The expectation of planners was that post the drought, people would revert to their traditional water use per household. That hasn't occurred. We're still at drought levels in terms of our efficiency on a household basis. Now that's great in one respect in terms of use of a precious resource, but it's a challenge in terms of ensuring that we do have green gardens, we have green irrigated spaces, and we're able to get the urban cooling that comes from that, and ensure that people are able to play outside and can be healthy around that. So the question there is, how do you encourage people to use the right amount of water where it's needed, and can you provide some differential products? So is that a role for recycled water or harvested stormwater to play, to be a different priced supply, a climate independent supply of water to be able to enable effective greening? Because I'd argue at the moment we've got a lack of watering in some of our communities and a lack of water supply there.